Hey guys, this is Rurouni K95 here, and once again we get to cover another anime which we haven't reviewed from the 80s. Today's anime review is Six God Combination God Mars, or also known as simply God Mars for short as well. God Mars is basically a Japanese anime mecha television series which has a popularity which only runs about 64 episodes from October 2nd, 1981 until December 24th, 1982, which is probably like on Christmas Eve, especially for an anime series like God Combination God Mars as well, particularly as well. And to the point of it, this anime series was made by the company studio named TMS Entertainment, which is probably known for their work such as the Lupin the Third series, The Rose of Versailles, and Space Adventure Cobra as well, particularly of how it goes, is how it works as well. At one take as how it goes. So, for the for the story plot on Six God Combination God Mars or God Mars is about Takeru, who was separated at birth and sent to Earth as a human bomb by the Emperor Zool, your typical tyrannical space ruler who's fine killing off his inadequate goons one by one. He made a mescalation, however. This kid grew up with loving parents which instilled in him with such strong desire to protect the earth that he refuses to explode his home. What a shame. That's particularly of how he doesn't want his home exploded. How you see what is going on in this anime series, like Six God Combination God Mars as well. Anyway, the remainder of this arc drags you through Esper robot fights in a predictable monster of the week manner, and particularly in these days, 80s mecha giant robot anime with a monster of the week manner from the 70s feel, unlike the previous other animes that I've mentioned from the other ones that mentioned in my previous anime reviews as well. I mean, you could count as on Gaia combining into God Mars at exactly at the same time in every episode after Cosmo gets beat up, whether it's being banished because he is too dangerous to have around or being single powerful enough as how it was to expect as well, because it's just how it is. And yep, Takeru begins his journey of never-ending fights for the sake of universal peace as well. So that's probably for the plot on this. I mean, the sound is just get used to having these types of sound effects playing over and over, if how you expect, depending on what the sounds they used as well. But that's in the case as well. For basically of how you know, like after 30 episodes, I mean, you could have hold your attention if there's depending on which arc particularly where Takeru gets into the more messes in the earth, especially the battles with space pirates, war with another planet Zool, which which he does, and the Esper robots as well. When things get super political happening in God Mars, at least a little more intriguing than the formulaic first half, basically, of how Takeru gets involved in a plus versus minus superhuman genocide and presidential overthrow, especially when the last episodes are what save the series, particularly after when Takeru is finally faced with the legitimate struggles and hardships and watch your MC suffer, or basically of how what they would have at least they could have made more 52 episodes or if you would have how they tended to be nonetheless, but that's my opinion particularly. They could have done it with like in the whole thing with the whole what six god combination God Mars had a lot to do. Well, yeah, I think it did had 64 episodes particularly, and there was also a 97-minute movie, God Mars the movie, which I have never seen, but I did see the TV series, even though I've seen it on Crunchyroll. And there is also the OVA God Mars: The Untold Legend, which is an OVA from 1988, which Discotheque Media had a lot to do, particularly as well. And yes, I knew that this anime is based on the 1976 manga Mars, from which is serialized in Shonen Champion magazine by Mitsuru Yokoyama, because it's probably how the inspiration came from the Roman god of war, which God Mars has basically like how it represents, particularly of how to expect as for a giant robot mecha anime from the 80s as well. And yes, that's probably what Mitsuru Yokoyama had a lot to do when he created the anime God Mars. And that's particularly of how it was. And yes, this anime series premiered on October 2nd, 1981, which is probably around the same year, particularly. And yes, it's probably your typical giant robot mecha anime from the 80s as well, because it's premiered in 1981, which is I think that's probably around on about a week before Dogtanian and the Three Muskehounds premiered on October 9th, 1981. And also, not only that, it's probably around the same time in 1981 as probably another week when Urusei Yatsura premiered on October 14th, 1981. Probably around the same time as Six God Combination God Mars and Dogtanian and the Three Muskehounds premiered on that same year as well, which you guessed it, because that's pretty much any certain anime premiered in October in 1981, particularly as well. But anyway, so let's discuss about the animation. However, even if how you love the certain old style anime series, particularly of how you expect of how the case goes, particularly, I mean the animation looks beautifully well drawn and very old school anime aesthetic feel from the 80s as well. I mean, if you love 80s mecha anime, this is the one you have to start with, particularly. Otherwise, there's all other notable titles like Voltus 5 or Super Dimension Fortress Macross or Beast King Golion or Voltron, which it was called, as well as Armored Fleet Dirugger as well. And yes, I really do love the animation, probably, because that's particularly how it's well drawn, because it's animated by TMS Entertainment, particularly in the same feel of how they made this anime as well, particularly into a time basically of how it's gaining a popularity in other countries such as not only Japan but also Hong Kong and most likely Italy, which this anime made its first overseas broadcasting airing outside Japan when its popularity with how Six God Combination God Mars particularly had a lot to do for as well. And for the characters, however, the team Cosmo Crusher Takeru has always been carrying them in the battle, to giving in the credibility of how they saved him from a diversion of many few times, which handle basically the easier tasks while Takeru faced the actual threats of how it would have left Earth almost be destroyed if their superhuman buddy wasn't around, even if they was around. But that's just how it is as well. I mean, they also adopt an orphan kid, basically. I mean, on not only that, there's basically powers of a superhuman. You might notice the strength, telekinesis, laser eyes, something like that as well. It's basically your own spiky anime hair into the enemy's eyes, making shockwaves to these types of risks, as well as a Pokemon move double team way in this day. But that's how Pokemon arrived only in the 90s, which is probably the more popular one as well. In this whole certain turn of event way, as of how it rises from its own phoenix ways as well, of how you expect for an anime like God Mars as well. Because, Pokemon hasn't been around until 1997, because God Mars came out in 1981 on October 2nd as well. But anyways, or anyhow, the the most useful ability, basically, what Takeru's Hyper Saiyan's basically come in danger and its own alibi, very confident, especially when his psychic powers basically link to the robots as well. Basically, the designs than the basic crew of the Cosmo probably in this. But overall, basically, I find the series of how the love and presence of how what you could knew anything of you wishing something with a millimeter of more of the thrill. I mean, predictability of how this show has its credibility, how insanely simple on every certain episode, always use the same plot, but only with those different enemy robots in a own certain matter of how they use. I'm like, how do they do that by using the same plot when you go to a different plot? That's just my opinion, probably. I mean, doesn't that invoke overflowing basically of what's happening next to what's going on? But the ending, however, it's basically of how it's the rewarding after slugging through so much of the same old thing, particularly instead of going through a different plot, probably as well. Basically, before there was Giant Gorg, which is another giant robot anime from the 80s as well, which I'll covering for some other time. Even though overall, the anime series Six God Combination God Mars, or God Mars, or also known probably because it got a Blu-ray release from Discotheque Media, which I have heard as well. And also, this anime series has made it to the Grand Anime Grand Prix in 1982, probably for the award, the ceremony as well. But overall, I find this anime series to be well done mecha anime from the 80s as well, particularly of how it's gaining its popularity, of how something, what it is about God Mars, as how to explain everything, why they use these different robots, probably, of how they're using the same plot like over and over again, but they could have used a different plot as well, but technically, especially this capsulated over because this anime series only capsulated only 64 episodes of using different robots and the same plot from before, and well, they could have just used a different plot instead of using the same plot in general. But that's just how it is as well. But overall, I'm going to give the series a 10 out of 10 because I really love the series because they could have, in my opinion, they just could have used a different plot instead of the same plot from before, from the very beginning as well. And yes, because that's just my opinion. And this anime is also great for to start rewatching as well, even though I have watched it from since last year as well. And if you can enjoy it, if you watch it as again and again, if you can take it into expecting ways of how to explain about the thing about the anime like God Mars. So that's going to be it for my anime review on God Mars for today's anime review. Thank you for watching, but before we go, here's my thoughts for this. When I first watched it, I really knew they used these different robots, and why do they use the same plot? They could have just used a different plot as well, like in a whole certain types of manner on each episode as well. But that's just how it is, what it is as well. I mean, it's okay as well. Oh, subscribe for content. My anime plan link in the description below. You can share this video on your Twitter and Facebook if you have Twitter and Facebook account on all social media. Be sure to give this video a thumbs up by clicking on the like button on this video. Feel free to leave in the comments section below. Be sure to subscribe to my channel, RuRoniK95. Feel free to join my channel, especially if you're new to my channel. Smack the like button if you enjoyed this video. Be sure to leave it in the comments section. What is your opinion on God Mars anime? And that's all I got to say. And also hit the notifications bell button. Be sure to get notified as well. And that's all I got to say. Keep it otaku for this anime review, because this is the first time I wanted to review an anime once again from the 80s, which I haven't done before, which I should have done a long time ago. And also, I've got another anime review coming up next, because there's a lot of other animes that I have recently finished watching since yesterday. But what we have for what's in store for today, what we have for the upcoming next anime review here. Stay tuned for my next anime review. I have another anime series that I finished watching yesterday for tomorrow's anime review on Full Metal Panic Second Raid. Stay tuned for my next anime review on Full Metal Panic Second Raid, because you won't want to miss another anime review.